I want to welcome Leslie Kaufman to the show. Leslie is a forensic genealogist, and we've worked together on several cases for one of my true crime podcasts called What Remains, which was about connecting missing and murdered people to remains. And I always appreciate your insight, Leslie. So thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely, Amanda. I'm glad to be here.
So, you hear these terms, forensic genealogy, tossed around a lot. It has become more and more popular, but not everybody knows what that is. So, could you give us a little bit of a primer?
Sure. Forensic genealogy is basically using DNA and standard forensic genealogy tools to provide leads in cold cases, unidentified remains, homicides, that thing.
And basically, to break it down even more in layman's terms, I mean, you are literally building a family tree. You take the DNA
Absolutely.
sample that you have and you try
Yes.
to connect it to people and you keep going. I guess you're starting, whatever your starting point is, you're either going up or backwards in time to figure out who this person is.
Well, absolutely. With this case in particular, with her being murdered in 1968, we know we're going to have to go back quite a ways because, as we found out, she was born in 1919, which made her middle age 40. I believe she was 49 when this happened. And what I do, once the DNA has been extracted and has been analyzed and put into a profile, a DNA profile kit is what it's called. I those into Family Tree and GEDmatch. I work with typically the top 20, 25, 30 matches, being in the highest matches, which are the highest in relation to the subject. So once I have those, I start building out the tree. And I built probably 25 trees because what I will do is take each one of those and build a small family tree. They're called dirty trees and see where they link. And I start adding them all together. And with her particular case, I ended up with I believe it was 5 matches in Family Tree and GEDmatch that I could put into place into a tree. I basically had built 2 big trees that equaled out to a little over 4,000 people in them. So I went back to the 1700s. And so what I mean by that is I built trees up to the early 1800s, late 1700s, and then followed them back down. Um, I didn't know when she was born at that time, with a possibility she was between 35 and 45. So I would for people that if you add that back, so somebody that could have been born between 1920s and 30s and trying to find out who is mean or could be in the tree but has no records after 68.
And so these are just to again put it more in layman's terms for somebody who may give their DNA to 23andMe or another platform like that.
Right?
Your
Mm-hmm.
DNA then becomes a public record. And there are people who are connecting with you and saying, hey, we share 2%, we share 5%, we share 10%. And so
Yes.
you are taking these people, these percentages, and trying to figure out relationships, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, siblings.
Yes. And there are many relationships that, depending on the percentage, the only certain relationships are parent child. There are no different other relationships that can come under that heading when that is when they share 3,400, 33, 3,400 or more centimorgans of DNA. And centimorgans are a measurement of DNA. And that's typically what I use versus percentages. If you got down to percentages, parent child would be 100%, then percent would be aunt uncle type thing. 25% is a grandchild and 12.5% is a great grandchild.
And to make
So
it,
when I do it
yeah,
way,
to make it more complicated, the parents, I guess it's 50-50, right? And
right.
so you have to figure out, am I dealing with the paternal tree or the maternal tree?
Absolutely. So when I built the two trees, one had a little over about 2,100, almost 2,200 DNA, excuse me, people. Let me restate that. 2,900, 2,100 people in it. And the second tree had 1,933, I believe it was. One of those was the maternal and one was the father. Excuse me, the paternal, which would be the father. Maternal is the mother. And what I want to do is connect those two. Where do they meet? Because that is where my person is going to be. So when
So
I
let's,
find,
yeah,
yes.
let's back up a minute because I'm really fascinated by how you do this. Tell us about this case. What were you told when you got this case? And when did
Well,
that happen?
Well, initially, I had gone over to Wake County Sheriff's Office about 2.5 years ago and worked with Investigator O'Neill. So we've been working on this case a while. I was invited up to there to look at all the evidence that they had, and believe it or not, they had every single piece of evidence in pristine condition from when it was collected in 1968 on April 29th, except the gas can. It's the only thing they did not have. They had all her personal items, her clothing, the hair, that was cut hair, because of course she was burned. There was some remnants of her dress and a lot of little personal items, as were stated in the paper. Um, we sent all, and her shoes. So we sent all of that initially for DNA tests, get any DNA. We even sent it for MVAC to try to get it that way, but it was not there. So then we decided to go ahead and try the hair. And Emmy's office had some hair as well, cut hair from when the autopsy was done. And we collected that and then sent Wake County Sheriff's Office sent that to Astrea Forensics to get a DNA sample to see if they got a DNA sample. And that was with cut hair as well. So that was extraordinary that they could get such a great profile because there was no hair, ball, or root that we talk about always having to have. They do not have to have that anymore.
So were you
And
surprised when you got that result?
not really, because we had just done a case in September using hair for the same thing. The girl had been cremated not long after she was found, and the detective had saved her hair. Um, and so we sent that off to Astrea Forensics, and they came back with a perfect profile. And the same with this; they are doing extraordinary things now with hair.
Do
So it's
you do you look at the other evidence, and I'm fascinated also by this. You had all these personal items. Do you look at those and say, "Huh, I wonder what time period those are from," to help you get a
absolutely.
range?
Yes, and it looking at her personal items, you kind of could see that she was traveling because she had a lot of things in her bag that normally a woman wouldn't carry with her, like her razor, some toiletries and things that she would use for changing and things like that. So, and of course, her makeup. We looked at it. We tried to trace it. Well, when I say we, I'm always referring to the agency that I'm working with. I was not personally there when they did that. It's just because I'm so used to working with them. But Wake County Sheriff's Office had done everything they possibly could. Of course, none of her personal items had any kind of touch DNA. We had hoped that maybe the shoes she was wearing might still contain some DNA, but we had to try. And it was disappointing when we didn't get it back. But then and Astrea Forensics and testing hair for DNA now has come so far. Why not? So they spent the money and they did it. And it was in about half 4 months, we got a real DNA profile. And I
And were
got
you
it
hopeful
uploaded.
when you got that? Were you really hopeful?
Absolutely. This is a case that I have followed for quite some time, and I really wanted to try to help them figure out who this person was, because this person deserved justice. I mean, the way she was horrible, and then the way to be, her body was treated after death. It was just horrible the way she was burned. So we knew there was a monster out there, and he needed to be caught.
You know, we talk all the time. You and I have talked many times about resources. Is that really what it comes down to? Because we have the science, right? We have the science now,
Yes,
but the
yes.
agencies need to have the resources to be able to test this because it is expensive.
It is very expensive. The average DNA extraction, um, getting it put into a kit, uploading it to the two databases we use because they cost us, and then paying the genealogist, it can run anywhere from twelve to $15,000 per case. So that is not cheap. And resources, each Wake County Sheriff's Office has a certain amount of resources that are allocated to this type of work, but it's spread very thin because they have a lot of cases, not just cold cases. And then I believe they said at the press conference, I believe they have 32 more cold cases. Now, whether they're unidentified remains or cold cases in homicides, doesn't matter, but whatever money they have has to be split between these, so they only get to choose so many they can do a year. The SBI also offers funding, helped fund $10,000 of this case, I believe it was. And so that was a really wonderful thing to do and provide for the uh, offices around North Carolina, and that's available to all the North sheriff's offices and police departments. But again, there's only a certain amount a lot here, so you kind of have to pick and choose. Which ones do we think we're going to get DNA from? We think we're going to be able to solve? Um, it's more of, those are things that are all taken into consideration, and
Sure.
how
And
badly,
yeah,
you want to
like
solve
is
it.
this a solvable case? That makes a lot of sense because you don't want to put your money into a basket where it's unlikely to be solved. So
Right.
you are building these trees. Let's get back to this case. So you have these huge trees with huge thousands of people on these trees.
Yes.
Talk about how you whittled it down in this case and how you whittle it down in general in any case.
Well, I look for where they meet. Every time that I do a case, I know that it's going to be, a struggle because I'm going to be building trees, and I've got to figure out who is in this tree that's still in this tree, and just see, again, what names are showing up. Surnames, that's last names. Male DNA does not change for no matter how many years it's been. Father son is always the same. And the maternal line, it splits, which means it recombines. But then again, the maternal line is easy as well to follow. But when you're doing these type of cases, you don't know which is which until you finally make that connection. And that connection is either going to be a marriage, or it could possibly be a where the parents did not marry. So you're looking at a whole lot of things to ensure that you're looking in the right area. And
And of course,
narrowing it
there's
down.
no social media for this period of time. I know in
No,
the past we've talked about you can even use social media. You can use
no.
marriage records. You can use medical records if you can find them. You can use records of service in the military.
Yes.
What was the relationship that finally solved this case for you?
We found the parents, and we found the children, and then we found the one woman that we believed could have been her, but unfortunately, somebody had reported her deceased, and went and looked and tried to prove that it was deceased. She was deceased at that time, which was in the 70s. Could not find any of that. So then I started making phone calls, and I started calling her relatives. So, and once I got hold of a grandchild, and I'm not going to say they're boys or girls, or the children are boys or girls. But anyway, once I got hold of, left a message on this person's parents' phone, and grandchild called me back and confirmed that they were missing their grandparent and who she was, and told me that they have the parent call me. So the parent called me back in about an hour, and I had a conversation with them after they got over all the shock, because 57 years, can you imagine getting a
No, I
phone
cannot. I
call?
was going to say, this is like you're cold calling these people with some really
Yes,
shocking news.
yes, absolutely. And, I'm excited because I know I'm on the right track, but I'm also hurt for them because I'm going to have to tell them something terrible. And because you ask for the information and I say this may be your parent, just want to know what happened, how did they die? It's all in the public, it's in the paper. So
Now
typically I will,
she was burned, correct? But that was
yes.
after death. And what was her cause of death?
At this point, I can't say for sure.
Okay.
Um, so I'll leave it at that. I don't
That's
know if she
fine. We
was,
can ask the investigator
yeah,
because we're
that
going to
would be
talk
the
to
best
them.
thing to do.
Sure.
And the cause of death, I was never told. So
Okay. And it wasn't necessary for you, but you
absolutely.
knew that what happened afterwards, which was this burning, this desecration of a body, which is just hard to fathom.
Yes. Well, when I get involved in these cases, Amanda, many times when I was at Wake County Sheriff's Office, I saw everything, all the autopsy photos, everything. And I promise you that is nothing that I want to talk about, um, because it was terrible. And these people are human beings. And no matter that it was 57 years ago, 57 years ago, it's still as heart wrenching today as it was then. And for her family, it was devastating. They have answers now, but I can't imagine getting a call 57 years later saying, you know, your mother is passed away. We have her remains. Well, her remains are in North Carolina because she had been buried. And that's why we didn't use any of her remains that were left over other than hair, because she had been buried into a grave. And so the
An
fam
unknown grave, obviously,
yes, it
a
was an
grave
unknown
where
grave.
there's no marker.
Right.
And as difficult as it is to share this news, there has to be some satisfaction in solving a case like this because
Oh,
you are getting
absolutely.
answers for people.
Yes, because initially when I went over and spoke with Investigator Wallace O'Neill, he had told me that the DA said, if we can name her, we can close this case, because they knew who killed her. And they knew that when I walked in over there. Um, and that was one of my driving forces, because no matter if the man is deceased or not, his he is going to be recognized as the person who did this. And if he were alive, he would be charged with first degree murder. The fact that he died many, many, many years ago, still doesn't matter. I mean, it would be nice, but that's she would be 106 years old if she were alive today. So we can imagine the suspect his age as well. Um, but there's me, it's always rewarding when I can give that lead to investigators. It's proven. We have answers for the family. At least now they know where their mother is. Um, they have some answers, and you know, it. That's all we can do. I mean, and the case is solved. So,
Well, that's
um,
congratulations to you. I know. How long did you work on the genealogy once you got the DNA?
about 3 months,
Okay.
and then it took another month, the final DNA match with the grandchild, with the child.
Right, because then you do the confirmatory test
Yes, we
where
have to do a
you
confirmatory test.
take a
That's
test
correct.
from the family member and you're able to match it to your sample.
Yeah.
What do you think? And again, this is something you and I have talked about in what remains. But what what does this practice of forensic genealogy mean to the future of solving cold cases? If, and the big if is if they get the resources to do it.
It means everything because, first of all, let me just state that not every cold case has good DNA. Not every cold case can be solved with DNA or genealogy, but so many can. And, we don't know until we try, but the resources that's what it is, if we can get the resources, many, many cases can be closed. Families can get answers and get justice for their families. And it's also going to be used in, today's cases, like the Brian Kohlberg case. Those things can be done if there is a case that's open now that is, you've tried everything, law enforcement's tried everything, and it's an active, somebody else might be in danger, they should absolutely use forensic genealogy, try to find out who that suspect is. So it's going to solve a lot of cold cases, a lot of unidentified people are going to be getting answers to what happened to their family members. I mean, I think that is going to be 100% used and it is now because cases are being solved all over the country.
And remind me how long you've been doing this.
6 years. 6 years. And I have been fortunate to have quite a few cases come to fruition, and I'm proud of every single one. My heart breaks for that I'm talking to. I get very close to my suspects, or not the suspects, but to the people that I'm working with. I know all about their family more than they know. And it's a very personal journey when I start taking on one of these cases.
Well, Leslie, thank you for all that you do to solve these cases. And I'm sure this will not be the last time I speak with you, because I'm sure that you will be doing many more of these. Thank you so much.